right. Good evening, and welcome to the May 28th meeting of the Nixa City Council. Call the meeting to order.
Kelly Morris.
Here.
Matt Ogden.
Here.
Sean Lucas.
Here.
Aaron Peterson.
Here.
Darlene Graham. Zern Vess.
Here.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if you've all had a chance to review the consent agenda, would anyone like to have anything removed? If not, I will accept a motion.
I'll make the motion. Second.
First by Mr. Ogden, a second by Mr. Peterson. Roll call, please.
Sean Lucas.
Yes.
Aaron Peterson.
Yes.
Kelly Morris.
Yes.
Zern Vess.
Yes.
Matt Ogden.
Yes.
Well, starting out, we have a service award. Robert Lebo has been with Public Works for 5 years.
Mayor Robert isn't able to be with us tonight, but he came to us from USIC, the underground locating company, to be our locator 5 years ago. Since then, we have switched, and now we actually contract with USIC. But we retained Robert. At that time, we had the opening for another public works inspector, and he's been working with Nate Miller in that for a couple of years now and doing a great job. He's picked up, obviously he had a good knowledge of what underground utilities were around. So it works for him very well to be able to come over and do the inspection side as well. So we're glad to have him in that spot.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Robert, for 5 years. All right, next up, we have our presentation with Marshall Decker from Decker and DeGood. I believe Ms. Jennifer will be starting us out.
I am going to go over sort of a high-level look at what the financial statements are and sort of what you're looking at as you're looking through them. Marshall will talk more about the numbers, but I'm going to just talk about the elements of the statement so everybody kind of gets an idea of what we're looking at. So first of all, the role of the audit is for accountability and transparency. Sometimes we think of audit and we think like the IRS is coming in to try to get a gotcha on you, but that's not really what the role of the audit is for us. It is to make sure we're complying with laws and regulations, make sure we're in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles, which is known as GAAP, and then to provide information for decision makers such as yourselves in making financial decisions on behalf of the city. There are two different kinds of responsibilities here. Management responsibility, which is Jimmy ultimately, and then me. And our responsibility is to prepare a fair presentation of financial statements in accordance with GAAP. And then it is our responsibility to design, implement, and maintain internal controls, which is that checks and balances. And so what the auditor does is he comes in and looks at those prepared numbers and our internal controls and makes sure that we're following our guidelines that we're supposed to. And so his responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on his findings, and then to plan and perform the audit to obtain a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, meaning that we don't have any glaring misstatements or mistakes, or that all of our numbers match what we say we have is what we actually have. So if you're looking at the table of contents, these are the elements of the financial statements. The first thing is the independent auditor's report. This is going to be the letter from the auditor that says, here's what I've done, here's what I've followed, here are the procedures, and here's my opinion. And so what we're looking for is an unmodified opinion, which means all of our statements are free from material misstatements. The next element is the management's discussion and analysis, sometimes mostly referred to as the MD&A. And that's the letter from me that is sort of the overall picture of what the financial statements are. comparison to last year. What are our economic highlights? What are our budgetary findings from one year to the next? And so that's a good place to start to try to figure out what the whole, what all the numbers mean in a synopsis. Next, we're going to have the basic financial statements. Now, this is the part that's like all of the numbers. And so we have government-wide statements, so that includes the governmental funds and the enterprise funds. And then we have the fund statements. So that's the balance sheet, changes in fund balances for governmental funds. Then we go to proprietary funds, business-like activities, electric, water, wastewater. Remember, those we run like a business. So those are accounted for differently, and so their statements look a little bit different. So in those statements, we have the net position, changes in net position, and statement of cash flows. If you're familiar with like private sector business financial statements, those are going to look a little bit more like what you're used to seeing. Then you have the notes to the basic financial statements, and those are supposed to be read in conjunction with all of the numbers to kind of tell you what's what and how it's laid out and what it all means. And so it's a lot of words, and if you're having trouble sleeping at night, you might want to read the notes to the financial statements, but it's got a lot of good information in there. And then we have required supplementary information, which is the budgetary comparison, the general and the street fund, the notes to the budgetary comparison, and the pension-related schedules. Now, these are all laid out the same, whether you're from the city of Nixa or the city of Highlandville or the city of Los Angeles. These are all government accounting standard boards standards, so that when you look at a financial statement from a government, you know what you're looking at. They're all laid out exactly the same. So all of this is required in every government's financial statements. In this year's report, we have a single audit section. A single audit is not required every year, but if you have $750,000 in federal grant expenditures in one fiscal year, you have to do a single audit. And so we did in 2023 expend more than $750,000 in federal grant money. And so this is over and above the regular audit. This has to be filed with the federal government, and there are different requirements that are elements of that section. So that's going to be at the very end. That was quick, but I just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview. So when Marshall says, when you're looking at the statement of whatever, you kind of have a little bit of an idea of what you're looking at. So with that, I will turn it over to Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall Decker, the firm Decker and DeGood. My grandson, he got out of it because tomorrow night he's got to go to Willard, so we flipped. Okay, page 1, 2, and 3 is what I refer to the auditor's report, what I call, generically we call clean opinion. Technically, it's unmodified opinion. And on page 1, the first 2 paragraphs are the opinions. We would like to say we opine upon this, but it basically says the financial statements included in the statements or the text of this, each one has a different name, but and all the related notes that there's a fair or proper presentation of the city's financial position. Outside of the city, banks, bonding companies, debt, they're interested you get a clean opinion or unmodified. The other is like a qualified opinion, and it would say, except for this one area, everything else looked good. And sometimes the except for is half of the government, but you always want what I call clean opinion. And then the basis, it's what I call generally accepted auditing standards, and because you have federal grants, you see italic words, government auditing standards. There's a little bit more opinions, more schedules you have to do when you have federal grants. Next 2 paragraphs recites management responsibilities. I don't know how many years ago that was inserted, but a lot of times in the olden days, I can speak of that, they figured the auditor, he was there to clean it up and to make it proper. But the fallacy was if you don't do your job internally, it's really hard to clean things up. And we run into that occasionally, and it's all messed up and that we actually have 3 or 4 towns that actually have a CPA firm come in and finish out the year, then we go in and do the audit. They're large enough, they need that. Then the next page, auditor's responsibilities, and 5 bullet points. We've always done that, but that's 4 or 5 years ago, they expanded the opinion page for that. And one new thing there was a going concern. Sometimes, usually due to pension plans, they institute them and then they only fund 10, 20%. So they're way upside down on their pension plans. You're not. But in some of the bigger cities, you'll see that. And then the required supplemental information, you have to have budget actual on your major funds. You have to have the schedules for the pension plan. Then on page 3, you have a paragraph there that refers back to the opinions on the federal grants. All those were fine, be unmodified, no problems with that. And then the bottom one paragraph is the other internal control compliance opinion on Yellow Book standards. There's the old pyramid. The bottom is the city, and then you got Yellow Book is like rural development loans requirements, and then you have federal grants. So when you go to federal grants, you get 2 more opinions in addition to the basic one. As far as the highlights for the year, page 19 is what the general fund, street fund are what we call governmental funds. So that P&L looks different from the water, sewer, electric funds. One is like a business, the other is a governmental. As for the year, general fund $11,714,062, expenditures $12,455,258, decrease $721,106. But the fee in lieu of the electric water pays over to the general fund, it falls down below. So you have to add that back, and then you bought some police cars, you're leasing police cars, you have to, it's below the line of capital outlay. So the net general fund increased $704,869, brought it up to $11,280,961. Benchmark, where should you be at? A third, roughly, or fourth of the federal or funds expended is a good benchmark. That's $4 million. And by policy, you have $3 million, and so set aside in a savings account in a separate bank account for safety net. So plus you have even more than that in the bank account. So you're in a real good, solid cash position. Street fund, $4,761,404, expended $4,785,436. It had a net decrease of $5,719. That's almost nothing for a street fund. You go through so much money on the streets. But you ended the year $3,665,319. So that's 3 miles of new streets you have sitting, roughly, okay? And that's good. You have plenty of money to work with during the street fund. I can show you some other statements, and you'd be glad you got these to look at. On page 23 is that statement of cash flow, and for your purpose, you kind of cash management. How much is coming in, going out? Are we building our cash accounts back up? And the statement of cash flow takes out the bookkeeping entries, the depreciation, the things are non-cash. So it's basically it's money received, money spent. Money received is a positive number, money spent has brackets around it. That's an easy way to read this. So your first line, when you look at that, you always want to see net cash provided for operating activities. So each fund generated cash to then pay for equipment, debt payment, and so on, okay? Sometimes people, they strike out and they have a negative number there, and that's not good. That's when the auditor taps on the desk and says, you ever thought about some rate increases? Nobody wants to talk about that. But you had nice positive cash flow from that. So then the net increase in cash for each fund, water or waterworks. See, a lot of times we call them water, sewer instead of wastewater. But, water, $492,036. wastewater 925, 826, and electric 2,425, 549. Those are all nice increases. There is no magic to that. I hate rule of thumbs, but usually rule of thumbs 10 to 15% of your sales for what that's worth. But you always want to see positive there because that gives you the money to do things that are not subject to a bond issue, but you replace lines, transformers, lift stations, stuff like that. Those a lot of times $25,000, $35,000, $40,000. So that's why you need a positive cash flow every year after covering debt to do those big ticket repair items. Okay, and sometimes like on lines, we debate back and forth. Sometimes you'll tear out an old line and replace it. Well, is that repairs or is that new? It was there to begin with. It just got old. And a lot of time you'll see in small towns especially, their lines, they'll fix new lines and then that added pressure will pop open some more leaks. And that's quite a common problem. Next is that you're in good shape, you have money to work with, you have ability to work with it. Notes to financial statements, you have to have those for a proper presentation. It goes policy, then it goes cash, depreciation schedule, long-term debt, and any other pertinent items. The one schedule on page 49 is always interesting. That's your loggers. And that is on 49, you can see at the start of the year, really, it's a brackets, but just to the plus, 162,509. Now, the first column is if everybody retired, what you have to have in account to pay out the retirements. Second line item is what you have invested. So what's required is 1,324,153 more than what you have invested. So it's kind of changed positions. That I can tell you is from the stock market. A couple of years ago, it jumped up so high, I thought they had a mistake, and I called and talked to them about it. But the market had really jumped. They had good investments. I don't know if you're watching stocks right now, but high interest rates, not lovely. Okay, and then on what you talk about, money you had set back on page 52 gives your fund balance and what's dollars set aside. A lot of information in the report. The budget actual is required, and your only rule there is if you don't amend your budget, or if the budget's not equal to or greater than what you actually spent, you have a state violation, state code. And what that means is that if you decide to expend, and usually it's in capital outlay, you decide to do a project, you always have to amend your budget. If you haven't done it, you need to amend your budget before you do the project. Otherwise, technically, you're not supposed to send out checks if you haven't amended the budget. Okay? And then there's two schedules there that was related to loggers that's required presentation. The CFA, that schedule is your federal funds expended this last year. And for what it's worth, it's always, this gets confused. Everybody's thinking about what I received. No, it's what you spent. And, but that has been submitted. They turned it around. Usually we'd send it in and get the okay, it's fine. Now you have to send it in, and Jennifer, when she gets the okay, send it to me and let me know. Usually there's never any problems on that. Any questions you have? I hate to tell you that you could spend an 8-hour college course going over this. It gets thick. But everything overall, generally, everything looks real good. Good cash positions. There's, in our work, I have two people really know what's in here and Jennifer's one of them. And there's a lady at Farmington. She does a real fine job. And I have some I really have to hold their hands. But you can imagine this stuff gets kind of thick and hard to get through. Any questions? Always willing to answer. I've done this long enough, you can't fool me. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the visitor section.
Whitney Gisan.
Mayor and Council, I'm sure that you were not tired of hearing from me last time I talked about Sucker Days, so I came back to talk about it again, because it's done now, which is very exciting. I hope everyone knows that it was done. You missed it if you didn't know. Sorry, I'm supposed to talk to you. I'm sorry. Broke the rules. So I just wanted to give you a quick update and a big shout out to the city. It was a huge success. Everything went very smooth. I actually already got numbers back. Show Me Christian County was on top of numbers. They had the request in before I even asked them for it. We increased our visitors to Sucker Days this year by 1,600 versus last year. If you look at 2021 through 2022, they only increased in those 3 years by 400 visitors. So from last year to this year, I'm not going to take credit. We had beautiful weather. It was kind of perfect for Sucker Days. It poured on us on Friday and then drove everyone out afterwards because it was absolutely gorgeous. And we had a lot of vendors. It was just a lot of fun. The beer garden was a huge success. I'm not going to speak for the police department or anything, but I heard a lot of positive reviews from it. I wanted to take a moment, though, and just say thank you to the city. We had city administrator, mayor out there pulling trash. We had Zern helping with the parade. The police department was amazing. Fire was amazing. I mean, everyone who came from the city was there to help. Scott Honeycutt deserves a shout out. He just, my beck and call, right? I mean, your guys' too, but mine too. Every text he would call me if he hadn't heard from me in a couple hours. Do you need anything? So just really an amazing guy. I had not worked with him before, but he will hate this. I request him every Sucker Days, so don't tell him I said that and delete the recording. But it was really an amazing event. It's awesome to see the whole city come together for something like this because it really requires so many different entities to come together. Not just the city, but the city does a huge part. So I want to take a minute or two and say thank you and just give you a really quick high-end overview of how well it went. Any questions? Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Rachel Campbell, you have signed up that you want to talk about short-term rentals. I can't let you talk about that during the visitor section, but you can talk about that during the bill.
Perfect. All right. Well, if there's anybody else who would like to speak during the visitor section, you can do so at this time. If not, I will close the visitor section. And moving on to first reading Council Bill 2024-17.
First reading Council Bill number 2024-17, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the 2024 annual budget in the amount of $22,000 for the purpose of funding the installation of an outdoor utility billing payment kiosk. Presenting is Project Facilitator Justin Orff.
Good evening, everybody. So I'm here to talk about the budget amendment for the utility billing kiosk that will go in the drive-through of the Nixa Library. Last December, Council approved $12,000 for the addition of the utility billing kiosk at the library and City Hall. The reason was to expand the number of ways citizens could pay their utility bills. I was tasked with getting this project moving forward by putting together the pricing on it, and while coordinating with DynaTouch, which is the kiosk provider. It was determined that an enclosure would be required to protect this unit from outside elements. I got in touch with Sterling ATM to come up with a design for the kiosk enclosure, which, let me see if you can scroll down. Keep going. Oh, it's right there. It's kind of sideways, but there we go. So that's the design we landed on for the kiosk. Staff plans to utilize a job order contract with Hamby Construction to purchase and install the unit. That contract, I believe, will also come to you guys in the form of a resolution at the next council meeting. We're asking for a budget amendment to the water fund of the amount of $22,000, which is on top of the $12,000 you guys already budgeted. This will fund the purchase of the enclosure, a height clearance sign, shipping costs, installation costs, a camera system, concrete work, electrical work, graphic design work, and our annual lease. The council recommends the approval of this budget amendment. Any questions?
Is this what it will probably be going forward anytime we put one out and outside?
I believe so. We will need some type of enclosure for it to be outside. So I know the one at City Hall, I think we're still working on where that one's exactly going to go. But yeah, if it does go in the drive-through or outside, it will probably have something similar.
And are these, because I know the one at the park is hardwired into the internet, are these going to, like, are they Wi-Fi capable or will
These
it
have
be-
a phone chip in them. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Even better. All right.
Anyone else?
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orff. If there's no other questions, I will open up the public hearing on this. If you'd like to speak to this, do so at this time. I will close the public hearing. Moving on, second reading Council Bill 2024-14.
Second reading Council Bill number 2024-14, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the 2024 annual budget for the purpose of funding an additional position within the Utility Billing Division of the Finance Department, presenting as Finance Director Jennifer Evans.
Good evening. As you'll recall from the last meeting, I talked about our plan for getting an additional utility billing office staff on board so we could have plenty of time to get them trained and settled in anticipation over the next 12 to 18 months of the possibility of a couple of staff retiring. Not that we're trying to push them out the door, it's just that we want to be proactive and stay ahead of the process of training someone. It really takes quite a while to get somebody firmly rooted in the procedures and operations of the office over there. So this person would train and be ready to go in 12 to 18 months. If we have the retirements, they can walk out the door and not look back. So that's what this is for.
Any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Evans. All right, no other questions. I will open up the public hearing if you'd like to speak on this matter. I will close the public hearing. If there's no other questions, I'll accept a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
First by Mr. Ogden, second by Mrs. Morris. Roll call, please.
Kelly Morris,
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Sean Lucas,
Yes.
Zern Vess,
Yes.
Matt Ogden.
Yes.
Second reading, Council Bill 2024-15.
Second reading Council Bill number 2024-15, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the 2024 annual budget for the purpose of funding the purchase of materials and equipment for the Nixa Utility and Public Works Departments. Presenting is Assistant City Administrator and Public Works Director Doug Cole.
Mayor and council, as I explained at the last meeting in a little more detail, we have a number of line items across several departments that we're asking for a budget amendment. Some of this comes from everything from supply chain delays to price increases. So we have a number of things, including some snow plows for some trucks. We have some pretty good size repairs bills that for a couple of the electric bucket trucks that need to be taken care of. And of course, that's very typical that we would only budget a small amount in repairs because you hope to go through the whole year and not even use that line item. But in this case, it didn't come back very favorable for us. Part of that's due to that truck should have been replaced already, and we've been waiting on it, and we will continue to wait on it probably for quite a while longer yet. Anyway, on top of that, we've also got a number of different types of materials, especially in electric, including transformers, poles, those types of things. And these are all materials that will be needed for development that has already been approved and coming. There's a little bit that will be, in the yard for backup. Most of this is already called for. To break it down, these are some pretty big numbers in the street department. It's 59,000. Water and wastewater are the lowest. They're 6,000 and 2,500, right in that range. And then the electric eats up the bulk of it at 1.547 million. So 1,547,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. We've got that all detailed in a spreadsheet for you.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Calden. All right, no other questions. I will open up the public hearing. And I will close the public hearing. Nothing else from council. I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
First by Mr. Vess, a second by Mr. Lucas. Roll call, please.
Matt Ogden,
Yes.
Kelly Morris,
Yes.
Sean Lucas,
Yes.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Zern Vess.
Yes.
And second reading, Council Bill 2024-16.
Second reading Council Bill number 2024-16, an ordinance of the Council of the City of Nixa, amending Chapter 117, Article 4, Section 117-102, and Section 117-99 of the Nixa City Code for the purpose of modifying the city's regulations related to short-term residential rentals. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Gobby.
Mayor, Council, good evening. A lot has changed since 2019 when we first adopted our short-term rental ordinance. The big thing is House Bill 1662 from 2022 that minimized how local governments can enforce home-based occupation regulations. Our current short-term rental ordinance is written to where only a primary residence can be used as a short-term rental. That would effectively make it a home occupation. So we've had to update this language to comply with a lot of those things. The other aspect of it also required a special use permit being approved by council and a business license. Those are two additional things that we can no longer require. So this update will update a lot of that home occupation language, but it'll also allow for non-primary residential rentals, meaning that doesn't have to be used as the owner's primary residence in order to be offered as a short-term rental. This feels crooked, sorry. So that is another big change. That is a question that we get asked all the time as to why we did not allow that in the first place. I believe it was the intent of our P&Z commissioner and staff at the time to kind of help maintain a neighborhood feel for our neighborhoods and not have it overrun by short-term rentals where somebody may or may not be living in it at all times and have a lot of transient people coming in and out. So that's kind of the big change. We did also have a 150-foot buffer between short-term rentals. Staff is prepared with an amended bill because it was discussed at the first read that you council may be interested in removing that. So staff is prepared if that is the case. This was read in front of P&Z earlier this month. There was nobody approaching the commission either against or for this agenda item, so the commission did vote unanimously, which was 6-0 to recommend approval. Staff recommends approval because it will clean up our current language and also allow for non-primary residential short-term rentals, and also it removes the requirement for it to come to city council, so therefore it can go through the process quicker. So staff does recommend approval. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gobby.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. I will open up the public hearing if you would like to speak on this matter.
Hello, Rachel Campbell, Show Me Christian County, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to present some data from an economic development perspective on short-term rentals and what that kind of looks like in Nixa, just so you guys have the information. In doing our hospitality study, December 2022, January of 2023. We had them, the organization that did the study for the entire county on what the viability of the hotel industry would be in this area. The organization that we hired to do that study included short-term rentals in that, so I do have some data on that, and it's available on our website, showmeccmo.com, for anyone to view. But in that, I wanted to bring some data from that study because it kind of helps understand what the current situation is with short-term rentals in Nixa specifically, as well as throughout the county. And I thought that would be interesting to hear since this was being talked about. So as far as Nixa compared to Ozark and Springfield, as far as short-term rentals go, the Springfield Airbnb, VRBO short-term rental market has over 500 current active short-term rentals that are out there. In comparison, the Springfield market is about 7 times the size of Ozark's short-term rentals and 19 times the size of Nixa's. So Nixa's is considerably smaller than even in Christian County, but as compared to Springfield and Branson, it's much smaller. So there's not a huge footprint for short-term rentals right now. Especially with us not having a large-scale hotel within the county or even in Nixa, that kind of exacerbates that a little bit. But we've got 4 motels or hotels in Christian County, one that's in Nixa with the Super 8. That's a 60-room capacity hotel. So that's not going to meet the needs of what we're seeing in this area. In this study, they included how many room nights are being lost to Springfield and Branson versus what we could capture here in Nixa or Christian County. And they kind of compared all of that together. So from a hospitality and development perspective, the 2 questions we get asked the most as the economic development organization for the county is, what is driving people to stay in Nixa overnight, or what would drive them to stay in Nixa overnight? And then are there people who would stay in Nixa but choose not to because there aren't available accommodations or enough available accommodations? I'm sure we've all experienced not having somewhere that you want to put up your mother or your grandmother whenever they come to town. And that is kind of the question that we get on and off whenever we're revisiting hospitality options to get a hotel in this area. Short-term rentals kind of help answer that second question. So whenever there's not a lot of viable hotel options in a general area, the short-term rentals can kind of help fill that gap for the non-available hotels. Now, that doesn't mean whenever we get a hotel in this area that they won't be needed, because once you get a hotel in an area that fills that need, the short-term rentals then serve a different purpose, which is usually those that aren't looking to stay in a traditional hotel will want to stay in a short-term rental. You kind of get both. In Springfield, they have over 500, and they have a wide variety of hotels you can stay in, but their short-term rental market is still booming because you have different people that are wanting to stay in one or the other for different reasons. So not necessarily to say that once we get a great hotel in Nixa that short-term rentals can completely be gone away and we won't have to worry about it, but they will serve a different purpose at that time. Right now, the benefit of having them here and making it easier for people to have them is to really help fill that gap while we're kind of feeling that pressure. We are just a few years away, I believe, from having full-blown hotel access and viability in this area. So also having those short-term rentals will be able to help us get some actual numbers to put behind what the viability of a hotel would be. From our hospitality study, it showed that the 60-room hotel was not enough. We need at least a 95 minimum room hotel to be able to sustain some of that active stays that we need. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I think that's all I have for now. Other than that, just since 2018, the short-term rental nights per year that are booked in the market has gone up from 2018 to 2022. So in that 4-year span, it went up 220%. So it was a growing, kind of a growth, growing pains era of the need was growing, but there wasn't sustainable accommodations. So that's all I have. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Anyone else would like to speak to this, do so this time. All right. I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right.
I'd like to make the motion to accept the amended bill.
Okay. Have a first.
I'll second that.
So Mr. Lucas made a first, Mr. Peterson made a second to adopt amendment number 1. Roll call, please.
You can voice vote this if you want to.
Oh, you
You'll
can?
roll call the next one.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Now, I will accept a motion to approve Council Bill 2024-16 as amended.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Lucas, second by Mr. Peterson. Roll call, please.
Aaron Peterson,
Yes.
Matt Ogden,
Yes.
Kelly Morris,
Yes.
Zern Vess,
Yes.
Sean Lucas.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for reading the memo. All right, moving on to resolutions. First up, Resolution 2024-33.
Resolution number 2024-33, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa consenting to the mayor's appointment of Ruth Ann Maynard to the Planning and Zoning Commission, presenting as Planning and Development Director Scott Gott.
Mayor, council, good evening. We have had a vacancy on the Planning and Zoning Commission since mid-April when Commissioner Darius Butler moved outside of our current city limits. The selection committee met last week and interviewed 9 potential candidates. The 10th one actually left right before his interview. The appointments committee did unanimously select Ruth Ann Maynard to fill that P&Z position, or P&Z commissioner position. She will serve the rest of Mr. Butler's term, which was set to expire in November 1 of this year. At that time, she'll be eligible for reappointment if the mayor so chooses, or if she so chooses to stay on. Staff recommends approval. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Godby.
Thank you.
And thank you to the committee for your guys' work on that. I guess do a public hearing on that too, don't I? All right. Well, if anyone would like to speak on this, I will open up the public hearing. All right, I will close the public hearing. I will accept a motion.
I'll make the motion. Second.
All right, first by Mr. Ogden, a second by Mr. Vess. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carried. All right. And we will go ahead and have Ms. Maynard sworn in so you can be legit. Thank you for volunteering. All right. Moving on to Resolution 2024-34.
Resolution number 2024-34, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa granting a permit to the Nixa Public Schools to authorize the display of fireworks for the 2024 high school football season. Presenting is Planning and Development Director Scott Gabi.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is a request from Nixa Public Schools to have a public display of fireworks at the home games of the football games this year. Those are the 4 dates that are shown in the memo. Those are the 4 dates that they requested. Section 16-198 of Nixa City Code requires City Council to approve public displays of fireworks. So that is what we are here for, is basically for council's approval of this. They have provided or proof that they are being, the display is being conducted by a competent company. This AM Pyrotechnics, they have done this display for the past couple of years, and I believe they have done other displays here in the Nixa area. They have provided proper insurance to cover up to $3 million in liability coverage. Staff recommends approval. I don't know what else to say.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Godby.
I'm done. Thank you.
Do they have to get a, well, do we extend that to playoff games or anything like that? Oh, well,
They
we
can't shoot
do it
off
for the
fireworks in
ones. That's
playoff
right.
games,
Never
yeah.
mind, I just remember that.
Yeah, so it should be good.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no other questions, I will open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak about fireworks at the football games. And I will close the public hearing. Nothing else from council. I'll accept the motion.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Lucas, a second by Mr. Ogden. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next up, Resolution 2024-35.
Resolution number 2024-35, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa amending the city's personnel code by modifying policy 7.1.10 for the purpose of modifying the provisions related to the family and medical leave. Presenting is Human Resources Director Amanda Hunsucker.
Good evening. As you can see with my memo, we would like to change our FMLA policy to allow those that are described as caregivers to be able to work a second job while they're on FMLA leave.
Any questions? Put that in as little words as you could, didn't you? We know how you love to talk.
I tried real hard.
All right. No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions, I will open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this, do so at this time. I will close the public hearing. Anything else from council? All right, I'll accept the motion.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Peterson, a second by Mrs. Morris. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Moving on to Resolution 2024-36.
Resolution number 2024-36, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa authorizing the city administrator to solicit proposals for a backflow prevention assembly testing contractor. Presenting is Water Superintendent Jason Stutzman.
Good evening. Back in February, we changed the ordinance on the backflow. We changed the backflow ordinance to allow us to hire a contractor to come in and at the end of June, 1st of July, to start testing for the people who don't turn in their backflows. All this resolution entails is that we go out for an RFP to allow us to get a contract tester to test the backflows in August to meet the DNR qualifications.
I don't remember if I asked this the last time, but is there some sort of a grace period after July 1st that will contact them X amount of times before
Yeah, we're
sending
going to send
someone
out some notices. We probably won't send, once this gets through and we go through the process of hiring a contractor and stuff, it'll probably be middle of August where we send them out there to actually do the testing. So we're going to give them a grace period about the whole month of July, basically, to get the backflows turned in on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do door hangers and send out letters and stuff like that before we just send somebody out there.
Okay. So I have till the end of July to do my backflow.
Yours will be the first one on the list.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, if no questions, I will open up the public hearing if you would like to speak about backflow prevention. Fair enough. I will close the public hearing. Nothing else from council. I will accept the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
First by Mr. Ogden, a second by Mr. Vess. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Last up, Resolution 2024-37.
Resolution number 2024-37, a resolution of the Council of the City of Nixa authorizing the city administrator to purchase a vehicle for the police department to use in connection with a certain task force. Presenting is Deputy Chief Chad Tennis.
Evening, Mayor and Council. As a background, as you can see in the memo, we brought this in April to execute a contract with the DEA. It was brought back later in April to purchase a vehicle where we appropriated funds to do so. Since that time, we've been able to find a vehicle that will actually work for the position, and we're here asking for approval for the city administrator to execute this resolution to purchase the vehicle. Any questions?
Perfect. Any questions? Thank you, sir. No other questions. I will open up the public hearing. If you would like to speak on this one. I will close the public hearing. Nothing else from council. I'll accept the motion.
So made.
Second.
First by Mr. Lucas, second by Mrs. Morris. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And now, we get to hear Mr. Ogden give his liaison report for Public Works. Been waiting for this for months. I'm sure.
Lots of transitions.
Yeah.
I decided not to do a PowerPoint because I'd use nothing but transitions, and Jared be yelling at me.
I appreciate that.
See if you guys can listen. I just want to start with saying that the Utility Works Department is a department that probably don't get noticed a whole lot until there's a storm, weather, something that's wrong. And then they get all kinds of calls, and usually not the nicest calls. So I want to say for Charles, just thank you to you guys that works in Public Works. So I'm just going to go through each department a little bit. Like the water department, we have, and correct me if I'm wrong on these numbers, but I believe 9 guys that work in the water, guys or gals that work in the water department, and 1 vacancy, I believe. Some of the projects they got going on later this year, they're going to be painting Tower 6, which is over on Tracker. They're designing the new water tower. That would be north of Walmart. Hopefully the design is done by the end of the year. That will be $1 million gallon tower, and hopefully it is built in 25. Also with every year, I believe that's right, every year we try to clean the inside of 2 towers. Is that correct? So besides just keeping the outside of the towers clean or painted, obviously the inside's just as important. So I don't know about anybody else, but I like clean water. So I appreciate them staying on top of giving us clean water. And then just a little side note, if it's raining, please turn off your sprinkler systems. Every year we worry about not having enough water, and we run our sprinkler systems when it's raining. So that's just a side note. Let's go on to the wastewater. We have 12 employees in the wastewater, and I believe we're 2 short there. So we're still looking for guys to come there. Right now we are lining the clarifier, which I think is pretty close to being finished up or will be soon. So that's awesome. We're designing the new sludge basin. Also designing, it's coming along great on the easement for the new plant out west of town. All that's coming in. Easements are going good. Looks like we could go out to bid by the first of the year on some of that stuff. So that process is moving forward. Going on to the streets, we're working on there's 15 employees there, and I think we're still missing 2 there as well. They're working on the overlay work. In November, bids should go out for the Main Street to CC project. So that's be a good expansion, which is going to be, that's all going to tie in with MoDOT. So the same contractor that's working on the MoDOT side of that will be doing our side too. And then the Cheyenne Valley sidewalk could potentially start late this year. The design late this year, and so that's going on along great as well. Then get on to the electric department. There's 15 guys that work in the electric department, and once again, I think we're missing 2 there as well. We're working on starting the AMI process, getting the design of how we're going to do the AMI, and then we have made several tie lines on the west side of town, or tie line on the west side of town, the east side of town, obviously to make, if we have problems, we can have ways to backfeed. Not to go into real detail, that backfeeding is a good thing if we have problems. Let's see, anything else, any big projects I'm missing on that from any of those departments? Pretty well it. And then the admin side of the utility workers, there's 9 of them, and I think there's still 1 vacancy there. So as you can see, there's vacancies in every department, so the guys who are there are working hard to keep up. So if you hear anybody that wants to work outside, send them our way. But I just once again I want to say thank you to everybody that works in public works. Coming from that background, I know it can be long hours, not great hours at times, but I do appreciate everyone that's working hard in our utility works departments. Any questions? Perfect.
Great job, Mr. Ogden. Perfect. I think my public works presentation was better, but whatever. No, good job. Thank you. Just a couple things. Our June 10th council meeting has been canceled due to a lot of people being out of town. So our next meeting after today will be June 24th. So I would assume that will be probably a jam-packed meeting. So definitely eat before you come. I'm trying to think of anything else anything from staff. What staff?
Mayor and council, if you have just a moment, I'd like Matt Kraus to give an update on the pool.
Hey.
It's getting there. They are in the final stages of pouring concrete, and so we had a first pour today, a pretty small pour, but they've got scheduled pours all week, and so in shooting for being completed by Friday, which is fingers crossed weather holds. They are finishing the media of the filters, and so they're all about half full. It's a lot of gravel and sand. It has to be compacted in there. They'll probably finish that tomorrow or Thursday morning. And then the play structure is being installed, and so they started that today. It'll take them another day or 2 to get that completed. But these are the final steps in getting things around and ready for us to open. I'm really hoping to gear for water either through the weekend or first part of next week. And we'll need a couple days with the guards to finish up the guard training specific to our pool. And that water training, they need to know specific to our pool. All their back stuff has been done, so all the prerequisites and all of that stuff has already been completed. And so I know they're eager to get started. We're eager to open the pool and should be on track for opening sometime next week. As we get to the end of this week, I'm hoping to be able to kick out a date on when we open.
Thank you.
Right on schedule.
Yep. And also, I appreciate the amount of updates that you guys are putting out on social media. I think a lot of people appreciate that.
We're trying to know, everyone's eager for an exact date. We are eager for an exact date as well. And we're getting close enough. We're almost there to be able to provide that.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Mayor, I've got a couple quick items. Between Memorial Day and Labor Day, we shift our hours back a half an hour, take advantage of the morning, especially later in the year when it's really hot in the afternoon. At the same time, though, we'll also move into our extended recycle hours. So we'll be into that until Labor Day as well. And I know some of you have been getting calls about mosquito spraying. That material finally came in. Barring no rain, we'll start spraying June 3rd, which is next week. So we still have to calibrate and everything.
Gotcha. Thank you. Anything else from staff? Anything from council?
Do you want to mention that this Thursday is the Statement of the Community at the Senior Citizens, noon, $7 lunch, if you're looking for that?
Oh, yeah. The monthly update at the Nixa Senior Center. Get there at noon if anyone wants to. It's always fun. I believe Matt is going to give them an update on the parks. He'll do a lot better than I did last month with my pool update. Yeah, I guarantee you will. Yeah, that's always a good time. And then, is it this Thursday night? I have to look at my schedule.
Yeah, Thursday.
One Nixa, one reads. Yes. That's something that's growing a lot. And the book this year, which most of you probably heard at the last meeting, but is it Willy Wonka? It's Wonka and the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We'll watch the old movie too. Yeah. So it'll be fun. We'll be grilling hot dogs, and I think they have around 200 books, but they're looking at ordering more if they happen to run out. So the book is free, and you get to be in a book club with me. What more could you ask for?
We've got movies in the park Saturday night too. Our first movie of
that's this
2024
Saturday. Okay.
is this Saturday. And it's sponsored by the Massengill Group once again. We're showing the new Mario Brothers.
Perfect.
Dusk, Macaulay Park.
All right. Thank you. Anything else from council? All right. Nothing else. Meeting adjourned.